Welcome to a very special Slasher Sunday. So, Halloween Ends. A very controversial film, a very split film, a very divisive film. But we're here to talk about it. And man, you guys have commented a lot on the spoiler-free review.
A lot.
A lot of differing of opinions in there.
Yep.
And that's totally fine. First thing I want to say about this, obviously we're going to be talking spoilers, but as I had said in the last video, I totally get why people hate this movie, right? And, you know, I've seen the complaints. I totally get them. I even agree with them to a degree, right? And I'm going to get in there on those things for sure. But I will say, I do think this is that kind of film, and this is probably true of a lot of films, but once you've seen a film and you know what to expect from it, you can start to, and this is up to you, of course, and this, of course, does have to a lot do with whether you are enjoying the film. If you hate the movie, you might hate it even more. But if you do really like a film and you have problems with it, the problems seem to dissolve for the most part, after multiple viewings, right? And a lot of the problems I had with it the first time I watched it, mostly in that last act, or maybe even the last 20 minutes, I didn't really have any of those much this time. I'm not going to say this film is perfect, but man, I really, really enjoyed this again. I loved it. I mean, I really did. And that's going to piss some people off. And that's okay. I mean, it's a movie. Let's be realistic here. So hopefully you aren't that pissed off. Yeah. But if you're looking for an echo chamber where you're trying to just get people to agree with you and you hated this movie, you're not going to find anything here to agree with. And it's just, you know, time to move on. If you're somebody who didn't like it and you're looking for maybe someone to say something that's going to make you get it, maybe we can sway you, win you over. I don't know.
Yeah.
But man, really, if all you're looking for is your opinion to be mirrored, then go find that review. And maybe this is it. But it is always good to hear other people's opinions.
Yeah.
And to understand that all art is subjective.
Yes.
Right? So my opinion is not wrong. Your opinion isn't wrong. Nobody's opinion is wrong. We just have our tastes. Let's move on from it.
Yeah.
It's a Halloween film. It's divisive. What else is new?
Yeah.
Right?
I'll just say, because I know we're going to go into quite a lengthy discussion, but
most notes I've taken in a long time.
Yeah. I love this movie as well, and I think upon my second viewing of it, it's really made my love for this new trilogy increase, which we'll get into kind of why that's the case, but I didn't have any problems with it for our second watch. I was just kind of head over heels with everything, so yeah, I really love it.
And that's great, and that's the way you want it to be. And anybody who wants to say, like, you shouldn't love this, or you shouldn't like this, or whatever, it's like, that's just vindictive, in my opinion. Like, I don't like it, therefore no one else should.
Yeah.
Everybody should like what they do, right? If you're going to spend your time doing it, time is precious. And if you're going to sit down and watch a movie, if I hate a movie, I don't want everyone else to hate it. I want everyone else who watched it to love it, because I don't want them to have wasted their time. I don't need them to agree with me to satisfy my ego. That's just not a necessity for me. I don't need to hear people agree with me to be like, yeah, now I feel validated. I don't care. I can be the only person who hates the movie. I seem to be that person with Rosemary's Baby and Scream, and I'm okay with that. I love that people love those movies. I just don't, and I'm okay with that. Moving on, let's get into the movie because we have a lot to say.
So much.
Yes, we did just watch it again. As much as people don't like this multi-release of theater and at home. Some people love it, right? You have those options, and it's like, this isn't one I really want to see in the theater. Oh, cool, I can watch it at home. Oh, I want to see it in the theater? Cool, I have that option too. So I love it, but maybe from like a box office standpoint or whatever, I like that that's there. And I saw some, I saw Christopher Landon, who's a director of like Happy Death Day and he did the Paranormal Activity, some of the Paranormal Activity films, was like, shitting on them for this. And I'm like, okay, I see where you're coming from. But I also like that there's some people who want to watch it at home, and there's some people who want to watch it in the theater, and having both options I think is great. And we saw it in the theater, and then we watched it at home. Yeah. And we wanted to watch it a second time so I could take notes and be able to do this, and being able to do it at home. I can't do this in the theater is a huge, huge benefit.
Absolutely.
So I was so happy to be able to see this in the theater and then come home and rewatch it whenever I wanted to. So people who really want to see it in the theater will see it in the theater, period. We did get to watch this again at home, and let's talk about it. All right. So as far as the whole Corey thing goes, developed in 2 or 3 films, right? So we could potentially have had Corey developed in Kills at least, and I think this would have lessened the blow. And I can see that for sure, and I agree with that. And that's one of the issues that I did have previously when I was watching this movie. Like, man, and especially just for someone who wasn't feeling this as much because they find this thing to be shoehorned in, and they came and they feel duped, right? I think that's a big thing, is a lot of people feel duped. It's like, you set up this thing in Halloween 2018, you set up this other thing in Halloween Kills, and then here we've got this film that's supposed to be the end cap of those 2 movies, and we're just following some other person altogether. And what does this have to do with the last 2 movies? And I totally, completely understand that complaint. And I could speak at length about that, honestly, just in how, like, I have 2 differing, I'm of 2 minds on it. But because I do love the Corey character so much, and that storyline so much, would I have liked to have seen it more? Sure, but I feel that's just a testament to how much I like the character. Yeah. If I want more of him, but I could see it just being like, well, I want more of him because I don't like him because he shouldn't be here. I get that too.
Yeah, I definitely understand that perspective, but for me, I can really see how this movie relates to the previous 2 in the trilogy based on the overall theme of the film. So I don't have a problem with his arc being introduced in the last movie, but because I loved it so much, I would have, of course, loved to see more of it. But I think it's sort of a similar situation as with The Last of Us 2, where you're introduced to a character and kind of asked to, get connected with them very quickly, and there's a lot of friction for, many audience members, or in that case, other gamers. So, but I didn't have a problem with that, and in the same way, I don't have a problem with Corey's character. But that's also because it is such a in my opinion, such a well-written character, and his character progression is so very relevant to the entire trilogy that I don't have an issue at all with him.
And I think people will, find issues with these story elements or the character development or whatever if they're not in it, right? Like, you have to accept that Corey is the main focus of this movie, and that Laurie is a tad, or I shouldn't say a tad. Laurie is sidelined for a lot of the film. She's still very relevant.
Yes.
Right? As is Allison. But our main focus is on Corey, right? And I feel like if you're not enjoying that, or if you're not accepting that, like, no, I came to see Laurie versus Michael, you're gonna start to see, because we always do this. If we're not enjoying something, the small things that would irk us or make us question something, or our question marks in our head become big things.
Yeah.
They expand and they extrapolate and get bigger and bigger, right? And if you're buying it, then you can either completely quash those things, or actually grow to like them, or never even notice them in the first place. So yeah, it's definitely a snowballing effect, right? And this is why the first 5 minutes of your movie, 10 minutes of your movie, or the first 2 seconds of your TikTok, or whatever the medium is, and the length of time that people have that attention span towards it, and they kind of already know when they go into something like, oh, it's a TikTok, I only got like 2 seconds to get my attention, or with a movie, you got like 5 minutes to get my attention, and like things start to snowball out of control for people. And when it's something like a Halloween film, something that they're invested in and they want to see, they'll sit there, and it's very dear to them, right?
Yeah.
As it is with me and you, and a lot of horror fans, Halloween franchise is very dear to them. So like when things aren't going the way they want them to, the snowball effect starts happening. And because it's a Halloween film, not only are they passionate about it, but they're also not gonna like give up on it. They're not gonna like walk out. They're gonna see it through because they are loyal fans.
Yeah.
And in doing so, they're like forcing themselves to sit through something that they're hating, which is like making them more angry, which is, as I said, it's a compounding effect.
Very much so.
So I get it. Like you get so you get so involved in your head and in how much you hate it. So man, the divisiveness of this film right now is wild. People are so angry.
It sucks because, like, as you're saying, Halloween is so dear to so many people, and whatever side you're on, it's like, people have so many headcanons, and they've connected personally, especially with Michael, and when you can't make everyone happy, like, that's just, at the end of the day, there's no way to make all fans in the franchise totally satisfied with the story, because you're either going to have people that want something super new and weird and different, or they want more of the same. They want to see that the legacy cast kind of returning over and over again, and both I think are valid, because I definitely have enjoyed this like in Kills and in 2018, like seeing these characters from 78 come back. But I also really enjoyed the new stuff that we get in Halloween Ends. So it's just a tough situation, I think, because you're either really happy with the outcome or very disappointed. And I'm grateful that I'm not on the side of the ultra disappointed, because it would be a huge letdown. But I don't, hopefully, like we said in the beginning, that we can maybe, if you're open to it, show you why we think this movie is good. Better than good, really.
Sure, and this is, of course, one of those situations where it's like the problem with a product, right? Like the Halloween franchise, like any other big franchise, Star Wars, whatever, is that these are products at this point, right? They're making them to make money. Like, did some artist come forward and say, I have this grand idea for something I want to do, and this has a message, and I have this thing? No. They bought the property to make a product to sell. They hired filmmakers and said, kind of here, and then they did their thing, and then they're like, well, it was successful, we want more. And so then they have to go from there, and they're put under the clock, right? It's because it's got to be relevant. It's got to be now, right? And so like Kills comes out, and it's just like this fast project. And it's like everyone is so split on it. They're hating it, this and that. And then I think they go, you know what? We're just going to make the film we wanted to make all along, probably. I don't know where Corey Cunningham came from. I don't know if this was just something that they'd cooked up on the fly, if it was something they had thought about before, but just were like, well, we could never get that pass or whatever. And then this happens, and they're like, fuck it, let's just do whatever we want. I don't know, but this is the problem, because I think with something like the new Star Wars trilogy, right? It's like they had no plan, right? They make episode 7, J.J. Abrams just goes, okay, sets up Rian Johnson and is like, here, hot potato to you. And then he throws it back, and then the fans are all pissed off, and you have the internet age where, filmmakers are actually being influenced, as are studios, by the, the big voice. And so now we have this, and it's like, had they come up with an idea from the beginning, like, hey, why don't we take our time? Why don't we sit down? Let's take a few years, map this out. Let's really put it together a trilogy. Corey might have existed in 2018. He might have existed in Kills. He might have been, organically woven into the fabric of the trilogy. But this was never supposed to be a trilogy. They always had a plan, like, if it makes money, we're going to make more movies. But, this is that problem with product. Anyways, we haven't even talked about the film yet.
I know.
But that is part of the film.
It is.
And we're just going to do nothing but film and moving on from the, controversy and all that stuff. So let's dive right into this. All right, so in the opening we got the radio, which kind of sets this totally different tone for the film, right?
Yeah, absolutely. Like from the beginning, I feel like you're in a totally different headspace. At least I was, which I completely appreciate, because I think that this movie, it has the best tone, in my opinion, of the three.
Absolutely.
I won't say that it's the closest to the original, because it's not really that, although there are some scenes, recreations of scenes, and just certain shots that have definitely a very Carpenter feel to them. They're homages, which I love. I love the homage. But yeah, the radio station definitely takes you to a new place right away.
Yeah, the music that they choose actually kind of makes me feel like I'm watching a Quentin Tarantino movie. It reminds me of the music that they're listening to when they pull up to Jackrabbit Slim's, and I'm just like, it feels like a completely different film than Halloween. And also we get this font that's reminiscent of Halloween 3. Now, some people have speculated, like, they're trying to give you a hint of, like, hey, this is going to be so different, kind of like the other movies. I think that it's probably more in line with that. The first one had the font of the first Halloween. The second one had the font of the second Halloween, the 1981. And the third movie, this one, has the font of the third film in the franchise. So it's just kind of, mirroring the fonts of the three films and their three films.
I love it.
And tonally, right? The first one is kind of like the slower build-up. The second one is the slash-a-thon. And then the third one is kind of like its own thing, telling its own story, right? Much in line with the first three films.
So great. So good.
And it is, of course, ironic that the mom in the beginning calls Corey a lifesaver.
Oh, man.
This, of course, becomes very ironic throughout. And what movie are they watching on the TV?
The Thing by John Carpenter.
Sure. So in the original film, obviously, we get the Howard Hawks thing, and in this, they flip it, and it's Carpenter's Thing, which he made after Halloween, but we get the Thing as well in here, which is, of course, great to see.
Wonderful.
The mom tells him not to show him anything, no TV, and he decides to show him John Carpenter's The Thing. I mean, what the hell was this kid thinking? But as he says, he's not a babysitter. That being said, of course, there is the parallels here, right? You've got Corey, which rhymes with Lori.
Yes.
You've got him being a babysitter, and you've also got him being known and eventually becoming the boogeyman.
Yes.
So he embodies both Lori and Michael. It's the duality. He reflects both sides of the coin. He is on both sides at one point. He's the lovable babysitter that everyone trusts, and then he becomes the killer that everyone wants to blame for their problems, right? So he is Lori and he is Michael in one.
Yes. Perfectly said.
Yes. I mean, he's such a good babysitter. He goes in the kitchen and
he doesn't even take the beer. I love this scene because it really shows that he's a good kid. And instead of he picks up the alcohol, the beer, and he like looks at it and it's kind of like, but then puts it away and grabs milk instead, which
very Laurie Strode.
Very Laurie Strode.
Yeah.
He also is seen drinking milk later in the film. It's chocolate milk that he likes, and I think that that's actually quite symbolic for how he is in the beginning, like of his arc before his rebirth. Which is, he's very childlike. I mean, he's literally drinking milk like a baby would. And I think that was done on purpose. But, he doesn't drink the beer. He drinks some milk and is going to get himself, I guess, cake. Is it cake or is it like pumpkin bread?
Something like that.
Something sweet.
So this kid's a little shit.
Yes.
And, he's playing a prank on him because I'm assuming he wanted him to be some hot chick babysitter. Mm-hmm. And so he pisses him off. He runs around the house. He's playing hide and seek. These shots are really cool. You get the, you get the shadows on the wall. You're not, unfortunately there were leaks. We got all these like speculations and whatever that Corey was going to be the copycat killer and all this. And I read all that stuff, and I was told all that stuff because of people. I would never have looked that stuff up on my own. So we kind of all knew Corey was going to be something going in, which is really annoying because much like The Last of Us 2, we got the Abby stuff, the Joel stuff, obviously spoiled. Not going to say any more than that. You get this kind of stuff is so irritating. It's like, why can't we just watch the movie? Why are people so obsessed with leaks? Trying to find out what's happening so they can talk about it. Like anyone who talks about this on their channels or on Reddit threads or anything, I don't understand you guys at all. Yeah. I just don't get it. Like, and it actually ruins movies, and not just because you spoiled something. It also gets people in a really negative headspace towards things, and it starts a mob mentality where they're like, evil dies tonight.
I was just gonna say, which is so relevant to the film.
Yeah.
Yeah. Mm-hmm.
So anyway, this kid goes upstairs, and what I was trying to get at there is that if you don't know about the Corey stuff, if you think Corey's just a babysitter, right, and they're just kind of doing a gender swap, where it's a male babysitter as opposed to a female, you would think this is Michael. He's taking the knife, right? He's stalking him. It's a year later, right? This Myers happened the year before. It jumps a year. You're thinking this is the time jump. Michael's back. This kid's afraid of Michael Myers. They bring him up. This is the thing that the kid's afraid of. You hear him, kind of screaming upstairs. Corey goes to investigate. And then it's a prank. And you're like, what the hell? Okay, Michael's going to be in that closet, right? Now, because I knew who Corey was, because of the leaks, I was like, well, Corey's not going to die. And that was super annoying because I was sitting there like, well, I know that's not going to happen. And then when he started getting mad and the parents pulled up, I'm like, oh, he's going to kill this kid. Yeah. Like I figured that out, and that's because of the leaks more than anything. But then as it was set up, I was like, oh shit, I think this is what's going to happen. And so he kicks the kid off the railing, which obviously is terrible. Yeah. And he walks in and he's holding the knife, and the mom is, what have you done? Yeah, the way that the kid's body crumbles when it falls is gnarly too, for sure. This, I will say just in the beginning here too, that this film does not have as much on-screen deaths as Kills does, but I'm totally fine with that. I mean, sure. I always want more, like you do as well. We always want to see more, but because of the way that the film is written, like I'm okay with not as many. The film wouldn't make any. I don't see any reason to have another kill in this movie. Like every kill that happens with purpose. Yes. Right. Like Kills is that slash-a-thon that a lot of people are asking for. Right. Like just random death. And if all you want to watch is random murder from a slasher, there's tons of those movies. Right. And Gordon Green and company, like they made different films every time. Right. They made the first film, which was kind of the reintroduction, and people were like, well, we want Myers, to be the slasher, which, as I said before, Halloween 2 or Halloween Kills, which is the Halloween 2 of this trilogy, is the slash-a-thon. That's where Michael, like in Halloween 2 from 81, that's where he just comes in and he just starts racking up a body count. Like he kills that chick in her house for no reason at all, right? And in Kills, he does the same thing. He just walks up and down Haddonfield, just murdering at random. Kids, doesn't matter. He doesn't care. Yeah. It's just death, 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 death. And if that's just the movie, like if people just wanted that to be ends, I don't know, man. I don't. No, personally. I don't need to see that movie again because I didn't really like that movie that much. You love it, but I'm just like, there's so much cringiness to that movie. We've talked about it before. Not a huge fan of that film. I will maybe more appreciate this trilogy now. Yeah. Watching them all back to back. But I would not say this is like an end cap to this franchise as far as this trilogy goes. I feel like this is fairly removed from the other two, but it does thematically fit in with them because of whatever is being said about grief, and we'll get to that.
Yeah. Well, I mean, yeah, I love kills. I think that, and I won't talk about it too much, but I do think that this movie in particular makes Michael more interesting through Corey, because I know that we've talked about in the past how, like, anytime you have a slasher or a killer who isn't speaking, who is faceless, like, it is hard to have that connection because they are the figurehead, they're the boogeyman. And Michael's great for that, but I think that with this film, we get more lore that is actually really interesting.
Corey gives him character.
Yes. So, yeah.
Yeah, how do you write Michael?
Yeah.
Right? It's like he comes out of the shadows and he kills. You know, I've heard people say, and I've said this in plenty of reviews before, I hate to be a broken record on this, but it's like, oh, Michael's such an interesting character. No, he's not.
He's interesting.
He was in the first movie, but from there on, what's interesting about him? He walks around and he kills people. What's fucking interesting about that?
I think this is where people's, like, headcanons kind of come in, and also, like, you know, reading, like, the Halloween, the novelization gives a little bit more, I feel like, for his character, but there isn't a lot unless you're filling things in yourself. But that's not the case with this movie. So
this is why in later films, right, in 4, 5, 6, these movies where writers are tasked with this, the writers sit down and they're like, what the hell do I do with this guy? Right? Like, they've already done the slash-a-thon. They've already done this. Like, I'm a writer, right? I'm going to do something with him. And so they bring in Thorne. Or they bring in the connection between Jamie Lloyd and him or whatever. Because they want to try to give him character. They want him to be interesting.
Yeah.
Right? And people are like, oh, that's too far. That's too much. You know, keep it simplistic. And it's like, how long can you keep it simplistic after 13 films? And that's like, well, then don't make them. And it's like, they're not going to not make them. And they hired me to make this. So I want to make them interesting.
Yeah.
It's a really tough one. It's a really tough one. Okay, moving on. All right. So, yeah, we got the woman screaming, which the title card for the first movie in this trilogy is, you know, the guy screaming at Michael, like, you know, talk, you know, say something. And that cuts to the music and the opening. The Halloween Kills is what? Is it someone yelling again? Because the third one's someone yelling again, and it goes to is the second one? I can't remember.
I thought it was. I'm trying to remember. Isn't it because they recreate 78's Michael? And I thought it was him being, like, arrested and standing on the front yard.
Yeah,
and that was the title
back,
with Loomis. Like,
Kills.
Yeah.
Okay.
That's what I'm pretty sure of, but.
I think that's right.
I think that's
right too. So no, I was gonna say if the second one's someone yelling again, I'd be like, damn, you guys really ran out of ideas.
Loomis might be yelling something, but I sort of remember.
Did you? Oh yeah, I think it's Loomis yelling like, did you kill Michael or something like that? Is that something? It doesn't matter. Let's move on. Is it somebody? Is it him yelling? Because that'd be funny if it's 3 films in a row. So the pumpkin openings in all 3 of these are wonderful to me. I love the pumpkins in the first one where they're like it's dead and it's coming back to life, right? Like the franchise is being revitalized. The second one with like multiple pumpkins all over, and then this third one where like you get the pumpkins ripping through one another.
Yeah.
And then the last pumpkin, I think might actually, and I think I'm stretching here, but I think that this is actually representative of Corey.
Totally.
Who is, you know, he's unmolded at this moment, right? He's blank slate. He's just this, and then he's torn apart.
Yes.
Right? So I could be wrong on that, but I feel like the first few faces are like the faces of Myers and the evil, right? And then Corey comes in and he's like blank. Like he's not there yet, but he's about to be kind of torn apart and formed.
I thought the exact same thing. I'm glad you mentioned that. I think that's 100% what the
I thought I was off my rocket on that.
No, I totally thought the same thing.
The music in the opening with the all that amazing. So amazing. Carpenter, Cody, all those guys, fantastic. I love the Kills soundtrack. I talked about it. It was my favorite part of that film by far, and I had said that I think it's the best score in the franchise, potentially. Man, this might be better.
This soundtrack
This might be better. I love this.
So wonderful.
Yes.
There's so much Corey's theme and like this reinventing of Michael's theme, and then all the other like lyric music.
I was gonna say
is wonderful. Really, really incredible.
I was gonna say.
Yeah.
If we're just talking about music, period, right? Where it's soundtrack, right? Instrumental, the Carpenter stuff, and the music selection and how they complement the scene that they go with, right? So you have the score, but then you also have the music, like when they cut to Allison and Corey on the motorcycle and that, and it kind of feels like the scene from Drive. It fits it so well, and if for people who aren't buying the romance of Allison and Corey, I mean, that's just your own opinion on that. I think it's super well done. You know, and I don't want to talk too much. I'm sorry.
It's okay. We both have so much to say about this movie, and we even talked before filming this about how we're like, okay, we got to make sure that we don't repeat each other because we're both very passionate about it.
Yes. So Laurie's writing her memoirs.
Yes.
And we're 4 years later. Now, as far as the phone call that happens in the extended cut of Halloween, people are like, "Oh, Laurie, you know, the phone call was in this cut, and you know, she's like, I'm gonna come get you," and now she's just like given up on it. 4 years has passed, and you know, we just kind of jump into her life where she's trying to move on.
Yeah.
Which obviously doesn't line up with where we leave off in part 2.
Yeah.
Part 3. I don't know. Halloween Kills is part 2 of this trilogy, so we'll say that. But part 3 in this series.
So, okay, I don't think that this is totally like off track with Laurie's character. I really love Laurie's character arc in this film and throughout the trilogy as well. Like, I think it makes sense what happens with her character in each film. But I mean, we have to remember, like, it's been 4 years. She lost her daughter. Right? Like, Michael's come back. She's had to relive this trauma. She's tried to confront her boogeyman. Yep. And I think that with this film, it talks so much about what it means to be a victim, not only for the victim themselves, but also for the community.
Yes.
And Laurie's growth as a victim is a really incredible journey, I think, in this movie. And for her to want to write a memoir and kind of try and move on, I think makes total sense. I mean, she's really trying to not hold on to anger. She's sobered up. She's not an alcoholic anymore. She's living with Allison. I mean, she says that she's in a home now, not a trap, you know, not somewhere to hide. Like, she's really trying to confront it. And I think that for people who, you know, are victims of any kind of tragedy or even just, you know, abuse, it can be really, like, it's a brave thing to move to that spot, you know, to be like, I'm not going to hide. I'm not going to be in like my fight or flight mode all the time. And I think that's what she's doing. So I wasn't thrown off by this. But I can understand, like, if you were wanting the Michael Laurie battle, like, for the whole movie, that you would be disappointed by it.
Absolutely.
But I think that this film is much more of a character study than anything else. So, yeah, I definitely wasn't let down by this.
I mean, we did the Laurie prepping for battle against Michael movie.
Yes,
right. That's
exactly.
the first movie.
Yes.
We do that again in this movie. It's just rinse, lather, repeat.
Yeah.
So for me, it's like, nah, I did that.
Yeah.
So I'm moving on from that. What do you think about the deaths in town? We've got people who were shot in the head.
Yeah.
Frank, the chief of police or sheriff or whatever the hell he is.
I think is he the sheriff? He's not the sheriff. He's like still an officer, right? Right.
Think he might be a sheriff?
No, because isn't the guy with the hat the sheriff?
No, I think he is like...
What is he? I don't actually know what he is.
I don't know what people's titles are.
He's not like the mayor, but
no,
he's
I thought he was like... I thought he was like... somebody they called in, right? Like kind of like when they call in the state troopers in Halloween 4.
Yeah.
Right? Like he's kind of like not a Fed, but like a Texas Ranger.
Yeah.
Or I don't know. We don't know. I don't know anything about cops. I don't know. Whoever, it doesn't matter. Who gives a shit? It doesn't, literally has no point to what I'm going to even say. So I don't know what his title is. Doesn't matter. So, like, 2 people are shot in the head. He's like, Michael doesn't use guns. Then another woman's hung. Now, did she hang herself? Did someone hang her? Did someone kill those people? Did they kill themselves? Are those suicides? Are there murders? What do you think about that?
I think that this is the perfect setup for the film, as far as, like, the relationship between the town with Laurie and Michael, both together and separately. I think that the town people clearly, like, and this is really reiterated, it's pretty heavy-handed, actually. I wouldn't even say that it's a subtle theme, but this idea that there needs to be a scapegoat and that the town needs somebody to blame for all this, all this death. So it's hard for them to accept, like, if it was a suicide or just, some other criminals killing people, they want to pin it on Michael. Or, if Michael is absent, then Laurie, because or Corey, of course, and Allison as well. Like, really the 4 of them, we get all of these different facets of what it means to be, in the public eye, either as the victim or as a perceived perpetrator. So I think that I don't think that those are Michael isn't killing those people.
No, definitely not. And I think you're completely correct. I think that what they're illustrating is that these are just deaths, right? Whether or not they're murders or suicides, it doesn't really matter. The town's default setting is it's Michael, right? Like somebody's shot in the head and somebody's like, oh, could it be Michael Myers? And Frank comes in and he's like, Michael doesn't use guns. Like, you guys are just trying to find answers, right? And that's what this movie is really, really talking about, is like that people want something to blame.
Yes.
They want to put their anger somewhere, right? And we know in this town that these people, are easy to rile up.
Oh my God.
And they're ready to go mob mentality. And that's why the ending doesn't bother me at all, that they, go in and dispose of Michael's body, vigilante justice style.
Yes.
Like, you could say, oh, they learn from their mistakes. People don't fucking learn from their mistakes. Okay? No. So you can drop that shit. Mob mentality is mob mentality. So when Michael is ready to be mulched, they're right there. So I love that. I love what they're saying about, and this was in my script that I had written as my Halloween sister sequel, as I had called it. It's the effect that something like this has on a town, for the mental state of everybody, and how they're looking for they're looking for that scapegoat. They're looking for that patsy. They're looking for someone to project all their anger onto and make sense of it all. And there's a lot of different voices or lack thereof that are being represented here, as you'd said. The victim, the potential perpetrator, the actual perpetrator, the dead, the voiceless, the ones who can't speak for themselves, literally, as one of them is. So a lot of really good themes there with victims.
Yeah. Well, and it really is echoed throughout each movie. I think that, we start off with Halloween 2018, where I like the analogy of an infection for evil, because Laurie is very paranoid and she's like, projecting it out onto her family with good intent to try and keep them safe. And then in Kills, I was a big advocate of the idea that, like, this is Michael's effect on the town, and this is what we're seeing. Like, he's not even going after Laurie, it's all these people trying to go after him, and then it's just super, super highlighted in this movie, the effect that Laurie and Michael have on the town.
The infection line, of course, is brought up with Corey's wound, and Allison mentions the infection. All right, I do much prefer this Laurie to the other Lauries of this trilogy. I find this Laurie to be the Laurie that I personally connect to, and I find to be true to the Laurie Strode of 78 that I know, where when she's coming down and she's burnt a pie, she's like grandma and she's a sweetheart because that's who she was, but then she's got this tough side to her now, which is what Michael brought her, right? Like you're an amalgamation of your past influences, you know, and there's the Laurie that we knew, the sweetheart, and then there's the Laurie that was created that is trying to deal with her trauma, and she's pushing back against it to remain strong but not become addicted to vengeance and anger and whatever. So she's pushing it back, and she's expelling it in a more healthy way, right? By showing, dominance over a situation, and she's become that wise old woman. We've talked about not even a fourth of my notes yet.
Oh my god!
We've got to go. We've got to go. Holy shit! We got to get this going.
Yeah.
I like that in her memoirs she refers to him as it. This is, of course, hearkening back to the line between Dr. Loomis and Marion Crane as they're in the car, and she's like, "Can't we refer to it as him?" No, we cannot.
Yes.
And then she refers to him as evil, much like Loomis. You know, he's evil. He's pure evil. And Kaylee noticed some graffiti.
Yeah, which was Love Lives Today.
Yeah.
Which I did not notice on the first viewing, but obviously Evil Dies Tonight, Love Lives Today.
Yeah.
It's pretty good.
We get Corey, of course, also being a mechanic.
Yes.
And this, obviously, has to do with Michael's wardrobe choice.
I love it so much.
So the fact that he's a mechanic gets Kaylee going because he actually uses mechanics tools.
It's just phenomenal.
To exact his revenge. I do like that there are glimpses of light here and there for Corey's life. I like that Frank is a defender of him, like, oh, he's a good kid, he just had a tough break. And then you've got, what we can only assume is Corey's stepfather, the owner of the mechanic junkyard. He's like giving him a motorcycle, and he's really a good guy.
Yes.
Like, he is a good guy, and he is very defensive. And whether or not Corey had any intention to kill him, I don't know. You assume not.
I'm going to say no, especially because in that scene, he shows him his face. I don't think he was going to kill him.
I mean, Corey is obviously very vengeful towards the people that have wronged him.
Yes.
Now, he does kill the girl who runs the front desk at the radio station who did nothing to him. He killed the homeless man, but that was more of a self-defense. But the girl who, obviously he kills in the radio station.
Yeah.
I think she's just collateral damage to get to his target. Whether his stepdad would have been or not, I don't know. It could be his father. He could just call him by name, but I don't think so. It screams stepfather. But his mother, on the other hand...
Oh, God, this woman was driving me crazy. She is such a horrible person. She is so despicable.
Yeah.
And so awful to her son. Like, this is like the typical mom that makes her kid become a killer. If this is the blueprint. This is how you do it. You just be super overbearing, very belittling, and also weirdly sexual, and kiss them on the lips when they're
sexually
22.
Confusing,
Yeah, it's
I
hated her.
He'd be 24.
Oh yeah, 24.
Right, because it's 4 years since the night, and then it was 1 year after that he killed the kid. Because Laurie says it's been 4 years since that night. He was 21 on the night that the kid died. This is 3 years later from that event. Although it does say 4 years. Does it say 4 years later? Or she just says it's been 4 years, right?
4 years, yeah.
Right? So it's 4 years since the Myers killings.
Yeah.
And it was a year later that the kid died. And then 3 years later from that moment for him.
So 24. Yeah, I think you're right.
Yeah, that makes sense.
That does make sense.
Michael Myers is doing his best Pennywise impression here, pulling
man.
people into the sewers, and of course, this is also, happening within the scene where Corey is thrown over a bridge after being roughed up by some people, a gang of guys that are, well, 2 guys and 2 girls, and throws him over a bridge, and then Pennywise takes him while he's hurt, right? The gay bashing guy. Yeah. Very, very, very similar mirroring of those scenes there. Now we can definitely get into we'll save that for a minute. I've never seen band kids be bullies before. Yeah, this is a new one to me.
Definitely new.
These kids definitely. I mean, I guess the main guy, he plays tough and he's tough enough-ish. Mm-hmm. The drummer kid, oh my god, I can't take this kid seriously at all. I find Corey to be much more intimidating physically than both of these guys. But I mean, he's just not in a place. No. Right? He's a sweet kid. And this is what you were talking about, the chocolate milk. Yes. And even the dad of the kid who died talks about how sweet and kind of innocent Corey is. Mm-hmm. And this is still Corey. Even though he saw him on the road and he was going down the dark path, like, dude, he's like homeless. Everyone in town hates him. What kind of look do you think he's going to have in his eyes? But he does ask that really important question of like, was it the town that made Corey the way he is, or was it always there? This is the nature versus nurture. This is the psychopath question that we all have, and I think it's different for everybody.
Super important for the film.
Yes.
And I will say, because you were telling me that a lot of people were comparing this film to Christine, and I had heard that you told me before we went and saw it, or like right after we saw it for the first time. And I couldn't see the similarity very much then, but then as we started talking about it more, and then definitely after this viewing, I totally see the comparison between Arnie and Corey.
Both Cunninghams.
I will say that I actually find Arnie like annoying both like before he becomes all like cocky when he has Christine, and of course after. But Corey is really genuinely like a teddy bear in the beginning of this movie. Yeah. And it makes his descent all the more tragic. Sure.
I mean, you definitely care more for Corey personally, right?
Yeah.
That's just because you think he's hot. And you don't think Arnie's hot.
I actually think Arnie is attractive, but his character...
I know what I am, Dennis. You're not ugly, Arnie. Yes, you are. Okay. And yeah, the Lori and Corey scene where she's like, "Who am I gonna do? Are you gonna do it?" And the popping the tires and all that. I love that connection between them, and they even have a connection before this, right? Like she drives past him when he's in the back of the cop car, because of course Lori's like an ambulance chaser. Jeez. And it's a year later, right? This makes perfect sense.
Yes.
She's out on the prowl. That's Lori hunting for Michael. She's out on the prowl. She sees, a commotion. Uh-huh. She drives over there to see what the hell's going on. She looks in the back seat to see if it's Michael, and she sees this kid.
Yeah.
And she's like, who the hell is this kid? Mm-hmm. Right? And how old is he?
He's 21.
He's 21, just like Michael was in the first movie, right? So you see him. She gets a look at him. At that point, he's just kind of lost. And this is their first interaction when he's arrested as kind of a kid, right? He's mentally a kid, much like Michael is in the first film in 1963, and he's arrested, and at that point, no one can see it but Loomis.
Yeah.
And then when Lori sees him again outside her window by the hedge, like she sees Michael in 78, she just knows.
Yes, it's very much like Loomis, right? Like she sees Michael in Corey. She sees the evil that's there. And, with like the Corey-Lori dynamic and everything, there is that whole fate thing going on between Lori and Corey and Michael and Allison. And I really love that because Allison also says to Corey later on when they're at Jeremy Allen's, the kid's house, that she like she had thought of him whenever she saw his picture when he was arrested, and just like was drawn to him. But also, I was just gonna say that Laurie has as much of an influence and an effect on who Corey becomes as Michael does. She's, trying to teach him to stand up for himself. And then later on, when she sees him by the hedge, and there's also that really great moment where she walks out of the house after seeing him outside, and he just like suddenly appears behind her, which is very Michael and very great. But he says to her, those kids from the gas station, I tried to stand up for myself, and he's all, beaten up, and this is after he's been dragged into the sewer by Pennywise Michael. But she's afraid of him. She really is scared, and I love that scene so much because she's just very unsettled, and it's just a great scene.
But it's also pointing out that to him, Laurie failed him, right? And it's like, I tried things your way. Now I'm going to try things Michael's way. This is, reminiscent of tons of stuff. I mean, we watched Cobra Kai recently, so it's very, like, I tried the Miyagi-Do way. Yeah. It didn't work. I'm going Cobra Kai, right? It's that Hawk, right? Becomes a bully. Sure. Because he's trained in the wrong way. And when he sees through that and he takes on Miyagi-Do is when he really kind of, sees better of himself. But it's that influence, right? And it's like Laurie tries to make him stand up for himself by, doing this and that. And he tries it, and it's like, it's not enough. Right? I've tried being nice before. I've been the nice guy. Yeah. This is what the nice guy gets me. Yeah, you had a great... And everyone sees me as a monster. I'm going to be the monster.
Yeah, absolutely. You compared it to the other day when we were talking about it to Star Wars. It's very, Jedi versus Sith, and Corey is Anakin.
Yeah, he falls to the dark side because, he just doesn't feel like he's getting through in the other way. So yeah, definitely. Okay, and the Allison is drawn to bad boys, right? She goes after the cops. She's going after these guys that are not good for her. He's an asshole, right? Girls who go through trauma, guys who go through trauma, people who go through trauma, they're drawn to negative situations because they live in a constant state of chaos. Yeah. And they're attracted to chaos because it vibes at the same frequency they're vibing at. Yeah. Right? And this is true. And when she sees Corey, she said she'd seen him before, and when she'd heard his story, she felt like she knew him because, here's some guy who's getting all this shit talked about him, and here she is, a Michael Myers survivor who was there, who watched her boyfriend die, who watched her, she didn't watch her mom die, but she knew her mom died. She watched multiple people die, or at least knew that they were dying at the hand of Myers. She is, feels like she's connected with him in that way. Like we both do this. And he points out to her like, no, like we're not the same. Like you're seen as the survivor hero, and I'm seen as the monster, the kid killer. The way he delivers that line, I'm the kid killer, actually kind of makes me tear up a little bit. Yeah. He really, really does a great performance. And honestly, everyone in this movie, to me, is great. Yes. The acting and kills, to me, is mostly terrible. I really don't like performances in that, genuinely. I think they're really poorly delivered and this and that. But I think the acting and the direction, shot selection, all that stuff in this is so much better. It's crazy to me. So I fully buy into the Allison Corey romance when she takes the blame for him knocking over the tray and all that stuff, and the way they bond and the way they connect and the way she's holding his hand and all that stuff. Beautiful. I so and people that are like, oh, it happens too fast and this and that. What?
No, they have such chemistry. Yes. And, love does happen. There is love at first sight. It totally
100%.
Exists out there.
Especially in movies.
And especially in movies, and especially in this situation. But
that's not what they came for.
I know.
Right? They didn't come for some romance movie.
I know.
Right?
But
have you seen Titanic?
Yes.
Have you seen, I can go down a laundry list of movies where romance happens instantly. Yeah. and most people bought it.
Yeah. The way that they, like, when she first sees him and, like, the look in her eyes and everything, it's so adorable. And I was 1,000,000,000,000,000% there for their romance. I love the, like, complicated killer bad boy character, but he also is, like, really sensitive.
So up your
and
alley.
he, like, wants to burn the town down for her and is like, come away with me, like, all of that. 1,000%.
That speaks to you 1,000,000%
Yeah.
for sure. Yeah, I mean, I could talk about that plenty, but we'll move on from that. We fully bought into the romance.
Actually, really quickly, it's not quite the romance, but I do want to just mention that I think this film is very sexualized in some ways, especially with killing, in a similar way. So, okay, 78 doesn't have, like, a ton of sexualization, I feel like, with Michael, but, like, the scene, for example, whenever he sees Annie and he, like, the planter that's hanging, he, like, knocks it. And then in the novelization, like, there's a lot of reference to him kind of getting aroused with killing. And I feel like, so the scene with Corey and Michael when they're down in the sewers and he's holding that Doug, like the cop guy, and he's, like, holding him between his legs and, like, Michael's, like, stabbing, like, the penetration and everything. I just feel like there is this, like, sexual
This movie made her
undercurrent.
horny.
Yes.
Is all there is to
But
it.
I just want to point it out because I think that there's a link between, like, Corey's need for, like, affection and support, and also this, like, addiction with killing that, like, as he starts to do it more, he's, like, really getting into it because it's the power thing. And yeah, I mean, even because after he does the killing, he goes to Allison and he sniffs her and, like, pushes her up against the wall, and he's, like, all fair, like, so it's there. I'm just saying, it's there. Just wanted to say that.
We get the overused death card symbolism here in the tarot deck. Oh my goodness. The amount of times Kaylee and I have been pointing it out, that's going to become a drinking game and we're going to die.
Oh my god.
You want to show Grief your tits?
Oh.
And tell it to...
Lori in that scene, that is, like, the funniest thing to me. It was so endearing.
Speaking of endearing, Frank and Lori's flirtation in the grocery store.
It, like, legitimately made me want to cry, like, both times, but especially this viewing because they're so awkward and sweet to each other. And I was just head over heels with Lori when she's all happy, and as she comes out of the supermarket after they have this awkward interaction where she's like, I like your face, and, like, you know, they're tongue-tied. She's got the smile on, and she looks like she's 16 again, and it's totally broken when the sister of her neighbor who survived, which is crazy, yeah. And this is what you were saying earlier, like, she's lost her voice, the neighbor, and her sister is there and is confronting Lori about it, like,
speaking for her
sister, which again,
not even through her, for her,
yes.
Right? Who knows what she actually has to say.
She's upset, you know, as anyone would be if their family member went through something like this. But it just echoes again this idea that people make the grief their own, which is what Jeremy's father says. And, you know, the shattering of the moment, and Lori just being taken back into this dark place, you know, where she goes and sits in her car, and then Frank comes up and is checking on her. Like, all of it is just so heartbreaking. While also, you know, like, bittersweet with their romance.
And this is also, you know, this is mirrored throughout the film where any of the main three characters, especially Lori and Corey, but also Allison, but mostly Lori and Corey, if either one of them has a moment of happiness, it's immediately squashed.
Yeah.
Right? It's immediately taken away from them because of their history, because of their past, because of this town. Right? Lori has that moment, and she's immediately confronted by someone who is a victim and is wanting to blame her. Corey does the same. He finally lets loose. He shows his face in town. He never wants to do that before. He's an outcast, and he's like, screw it. He's going to let his hair down. He's going to have a good time. And then he runs into the mom, and then he's immediately, like, that smile is wiped right off his face. So there's a lot of mirroring going on between Lori and Corey in town for different reasons, of course. But they both blame them specifically. Like, you did this. you provoked that man and he did this. Like, Michael is the voiceless as well. Like, he's just the boogeyman.
Exactly.
And Laurie's the one who set him loose, which of course we know is not true, but that doesn't stop these people from doing it. But yeah, I've just noticed anytime anybody smiles in this, it's a problem. We get Nick Castle as a cameo here as a flasher, which is fun.
Very fun.
You've got Lindsay being the bartender, and I like her role in this. She's not used much, but she's used effectively enough. And we also noticed, Kaylee, I think, is the one that notices more than me, that the mom is stuck in the past. Very literally. She is wearing the exact same hair and the exact same outfit that she was the night her child died 3 years previously. So she's like trying to relive that day or something. Like she's going, but she's like obviously much more disheveled than she would have been in the past.
Yeah, she's struggling for sure.
I love the way that Michael is made to be the boogeyman in this movie, right? Like, he feels like the boogeyman. He's that creature that lurks in the sewers and yanks people down in there and, draws energy off them by killing people. And if people want, an explanation for his supernatural powers within this, we get it. In Halloween Kills, the more he kills, as Laurie literally says in the film, the more he kills, the more he transcends.
Yes.
This is exactly what happens here, right? Like, he's beaten. He is, just completely hammered to the ground, and he's broken. Yeah. And he's this shell of who he was. He's Pennywise, who's now been brought down to this little thing, and he doesn't have the strength anymore, and he can just kind of carry people down one at a time if they get close to his lair, like a spider. He draws them in, and he brings them in. He probably kills mostly like homeless people who are weak, and he gets a little power in order, and there is that supernatural element here for sure. How did you read the whole Corey Myers, like, we've got we've got the hand, right? Corey undoes his wrappings, and he's like his hand is on the throat of the girl he's about to do the Bob homage kill to. When he's killing this guy, Michael seems to be getting the power from even Corey's kills. What are you thinking about that?
I mean, I loved all of that. I think, like, as you said, like, it just makes him into, like, the boogeyman, literally. But I think that Corey and Michael are very clearly psychically or supernaturally linked. And one of the reasons that I really love Corey's character is that I love the idea of changing the person under the Myers mask, like, of him transferring evil. And I think that it's really cool to see Myers team up with somebody to, like, duo kill. That was, I mean, it's just super new, and I think, for so long he's been such a solo, like, guy that it was just very interesting to see him with another person. And I do think that in some way the intention was for Corey to take on the mantle. I think that there was supposed to be a transference of Michael's power into him, because, like we've been saying, like, Corey in the beginning was this really sweet person, and I think that he's, dramatically changed, which can be looked at either metaphorically, like, this is what trauma and everybody's, expectations and whatever does to you, but also if we take it literally, I think that it's Michael infecting him with the evil.
Sure.
So, I just really liked all of it. I thought it was super cool to see, especially that hand scene. Because, like, the first time we saw it, I was kind of like, oh, what's going on? Like, why is he unwrapping it? Like, I sort of thought he was, like, healing or something, but there's no focus on that. And then this time around we watched it, and you're like, oh, he can feel, like, him closing his hand around her throat. It's like, oh, I really like that.
Now, of course, this is fairly reminiscent of Friday the 13th Part 5, where Tommy Jarvis is taking over because of the trauma of the past. He's becoming, what made him. But of course, this is more in line with where they were heading after Halloween 4, with Jamie Lloyd taking on the curse, and she was going to become the new Myers. And I've always been on board with this, but I think that either the studio stepped in or whatever, and they were going to make Corey the next Myers, right? Myers is 60 some odd years old at this point. 61, I guess. Well, now he'd be, it was 40 years later, and now this is 44 years later. Yeah. So he'd be 65. Yeah. It's time. And he's old, man. He's old, and he's beat up, and he's a man, but he's also like, they kind of go back and forth on he's supernatural, he's not. You're just a man. I think it's when Laurie kind of defeats him, right, and is able to take his power away, and Corey is dead, right, is linked to any strength that he has left, and Corey did all his kills for the most part. Like, Michael really doesn't kill almost anybody in this movie. It's all Corey. He is defeated. But moving on from that, I don't even know where I was going with that. What was I saying?
Well, I mean, I don't know.
Oh, that we were going to transfer it over to being Corey being the killer for the next movie. And I think the studio probably stepped in and was just like, no. Like, or they maybe were like, the studio was telling them, like, oh, you got to set up another one so we have something for the future. And then they said no. I don't know what happened, but I would have, of course, obviously been super down for Corey to be the next Myers, but I don't think that audiences would accept that.
It sucks because at the end of the day, like, when we see Corey in Michael's outfit, it's freaking Michael Myers. Like, I mean, it is Corey Cunningham, but seeing the outfit, like, I think that's what, for me at least, I love.
It's the imagery. It's
the imagery. It definitely is. It's the mask and everything, and for him to be the embodiment of evil and then to just pass that on to another person, like, I'm so fine with that, but I think you're right. I think that, like, the mass audience would be upset with it because they want the Michael Myers. They don't want the Corey Cunningham. But I want Corey Cunningham.
Well, you ain't gonna get him. I like how Corey moves in this. I find his movement to be very similar to Dick Warlock in Halloween 2, 1981. He has that kind of very stiff, robotic feel.
It looked great. It looked wonderful.
But yeah, I really like that. Okay, we're not even done with page 1 of 2 pages. No, we really.
I know. We could do like a part 2.
No, we're not doing a part 2. But we are an hour and 7 minutes into this.
Oh man!
And we're not even halfway done with the notes.
I feel like I could talk so much about this movie because there's so much that I love and.
Okay, moving on.
We're gonna try to speed it up.
Yes, holy shit, we've been trying to speed it up.
Maybe, yeah.
You get 40 minutes into the movie before you get to see Michael Myers.
Yeah.
Mike sees in his eyes potentially the devil's eyes, right? This is very similar to what Laurie sees. So I think Laurie and Michael both see what's in Corey's eyes. This, of course, goes back to the line from the dad. When I looked into his eyes, he saw something. We already talked about the hedge stuff. And we already talked about the stand-up. We got Laurie, who feels guilt and blame for Myers. So anytime anybody brings it up, she kind of feels defeated. Even when Corey's mom brings it up to her, she immediately leaves the house.
Oh my gosh, yeah.
And then when Corey tries to stand up for himself against these like little kid bullies, they don't even take him seriously and push him around. He pulls a knife on one of them and they like slap it out of his hand. He at that point, Corey is still who he is.
Yeah, he's
and it's after Myers and him, connect and intertwine that the next time he interacts with somebody and he gets in this cop's face who's like a man and he's a cop
and he's got all his buddies there.
Yes, he scares him.
Yes.
Right? He looks into his eyes and he is scared and he walks away because Corey is different.
He's changed.
I love the I'll light the match line and then the music and the motorcycle. That shit is pure romance, but like that kind of Sid and Nancy type of romance where it's like, it's doomed romance.
Dark. Yeah, doomed is a great way to,
Myers is so fucked up in this movie. Like when he's down in the sewer, he is just beaten, right? And he gives his last hurrah to Laurie. And I really do think he went in there to die and potentially kill her. Who knows? Maybe, as you said, maybe if he killed her, he would have become super powered. I don't know.
I know. Like,
I do love the line of Corey trying to understand why Myers let him live. And so he asks Allison, did he let you live or did you escape? And to which she replies,
my mother saved me.
Right. So like, he's trying to still make sense of this whole thing, and he even comes in and is like, yeah, I think there's something wrong with me. Like, he's still kind of fighting it, but the infection is really starting to take hold. And you know, Michael starts to finally stalk Laurie after all these years once Corey gives him some power. He doesn't have any power enough to come out of the sewers in order to, you know, go back, but Laurie is the one who, you know, really riled him up, and now, because of his connection to Corey, he does have a very strong reason to be connected to Laurie once again. So he goes after her. And we already talked about all that. Corey beating Michael and taking his mask from him. I mean, there's a fight there, but as we saw before, Myers is not at 100%, not even close. And Corey is kind of gaining power from Myers, and Myers is gaining some power from him.
Yeah.
But like, you know, Corey is possessed at this point. He's so angry. He's like, no, I'm going to show you that, you know, I don't need you anymore. Right?
Yeah.
Now this is streamlined. This is what I'm talking about. This could have been fleshed out more over 2 or 3 films to really bring home this moment where he goes down to the sewer. But time constraints, you know, hour and 10 minutes in at this point, you've introduced it. I'm sold enough.
Me too. Yeah, I wasn't bothered by that.
Right, he takes his mask, and you could even argue that Myers lets him.
Yeah.
Right, it's like, okay, you go do the killing for a while.
That's
like,
how
he
I
kind of
view
fights him for a bit, but then he's like, you want it? Go for it. Right, and he lets him go out, and he gets some kills, and this might even power Michael up enough.
Yeah.
Right, and then he comes back in, and he's like, all right, little kid. Like, I'll take it from here, and he snaps his neck. And you know, and if anybody's like, oh, the fight between Laurie and this and that, and it's like some geriatric woman is going to beat Myers after this and that. She's been prepping her whole life for this, and she gets her ass kicked around for a while.
Gosh, yeah.
And I find her, you know, the way she takes Myers down is actually fairly believable. Like, I like the way it's done. I didn't like it that much the first time, but this time I was just like, you know what? No, I really do wish you would have beat her up more. I wish you would have cut her hand off, like in the garbage disposal. I wish she would have got a little more mangled. Yeah. Personally,
I wanted her to lose her fingers to just mirror his hand, but I think that their fight is actually pretty believable, and I enjoyed it both times. I really like him getting pinned to the island, the kitchen island. I thought that was really cool, and of course, you know, whenever he's holding her neck, when he starts to kind of strangle her, and there's all this flashing between 78 and 2018 and Halloween Ends and Halloween Kills. Like, I really liked that. It sort of felt like Michael was seeing all of his impact on her life, or vice versa, she's seeing all of his impact on her life. But it just really kind of hones in on this connection that the two of them have.
Yeah. So yeah, and of course she's using his weapon of choice for what defeats him. It's knives, right? This has always been his weapon of choice. She's using it to crucify him. She pins his hands down. She throws a freaking refrigerator on top of him. I saw somebody complain about it, like, oh, refrigerator took him down. It pinned his legs down. Yes, I don't see the issue there.
Heavy.
They're heavy as shit. I don't get the problem there.
And his leg is still kicking, though. Like, he's still trying to get her.
And then she goes and she freaking pounds down the knives into his hands with a cutting board, maybe? Or something else?
I don't remember what she pounds down onto it with, but...
Whatever it is. Okay. And let's see. And we've got... we were talking about all that stuff. I did lean over to Kaylee and said that if Myers was on the back of that motorcycle, I was walking out of the theater right then. That would have killed the whole movie for me. And then I saw someone meme it later where they put a picture of Myers on the back of the motorcycle. That was really funny. I already mentioned the Bob homage, the standing. when Corey falls off the roof of the radio station, he sits up like Myers does in 78. That was cute. You know, we already talked about the mom and kissing him on the lips, slapping him across the face. That's like both sides of the wrong kind of emotion or love towards your kid.
Yeah.
The hard love where you hit them, right? And then you got the over love where you're like kissing them like almost romantically. So, you know, it's like everything wrong with a mom possible. And then she meets her end because of it. So he does take it out on her. And of course that is mirrored to Michael picking up the kitchen knife in 63 in the 78 movie. 63 and 78. You guys know what I'm talking about. But yeah, the scene where he takes the knife out when he goes up to stab Judith. And as you pointed out, when Laurie's sitting out front, she's looking at Allison taking Corey up to her bedroom. It's very reminiscent of Judith Myers taking her boyfriend up the stairs with Michael watching from the outside looking in.
Yeah. And
then in that scene, Michael is watching Laurie doing something that he did, 50 some odd years ago.
It's meta.
So pretty meta there. And now the so Corey goes and he sleeps on the spot where Jeremy died, and Laurie is there in the morning. Or is she? Is this in Corey's head? This is a very interesting scene. You say not because of
the paper plane. I wasn't sure on our first viewing, but this time around, I definitely don't think she's there. I think that he is imagining it, and I think that because she has a paper plane like Jeremy was always throwing, and I don't know why she would have that. It makes no sense.
Maybe it's just still in the house.
Maybe? I mean, that's definitely possible, but it just seems like such a specific detail connected to Jeremy, which is the whole like genesis of Corey's dark path. I just didn't think that she was really there, and I feel like the way that she's talking to him, like, okay, so how we see her previous to that, she's still very like scared and guilty, like whenever she goes to talk to the mother, and gets kind of torn down or whatever, and when she leaves, she just is very strong in that scene and very like, you're not, and she specifically says like, you can't have Allison, which like really makes him sit up, and makes him very possessive. So I didn't think that was Laurie.
Now when he's on the stairs, I definitely think there is this like debate to be had whether or not he's talking to Laurie or to himself with the things that he's saying. It could be towards Laurie, it could be towards himself, it could be both. And then that, of course, would then, if he is talking to himself, that would give some more credibility to maybe she's not even there in the first place. Because when he looks up, she's like the shape, right? She's gone. And when he goes to look for her, the drapes are blowing in the wind. Very reminiscent of 1978. When Laurie looks back, when the phone line's cut, and she goes and she grabs the knitting needle, and the window's open. She's like, oh God, and whatever. That's very similar, right? So she's turning into the shape at this point. Transference. She's becoming Michael. Yeah, I don't know. The only thing that I would say for why I think she is there is that she says some pretty specific things, but that could just be in his head, right? So I don't know. It seems more specific to her and what she would know and what he wouldn't know. But I'd have to watch the scene a couple more times to really, maybe one more time, to really hone in on the dialogue there to see like, oh no, she's saying this. How would he know that? How would he know that in order to fantasize it? Maybe Allison told him, right? They've had more time than we see in this movie, right? They've spent plenty of hours together that we don't see. They even got it on.
They did.
In case you needed a visual representation, there you go. That's what sex looks like, everybody. You're welcome.
You're welcome.
Now, Laurie, we talked about all that. that. Yep, good. Okay. We're making our way through. Good, yes. All right, we're getting down there. Now, Corey calls ahead of time out to Allison, and he tells her, which of course sets this whole thing up, Lori's trying to kill me. His name is Chucky, and he's trying to kill me. It would have been so funny. Her name is Lori, and she's trying to kill me. Well, Alex Vincent.
That would have been great.
Yeah, no. Anyway, but this whole setup, right, where we get this later on, where Corey is defeated, he's on the ground. He could make that decision to attack Lori. Allison pulls up, and he's made it very clear before that no one can have Allison if he can't have Allison, and he decides to kill himself because if he goes after Lori, she's going to see him for the monster that he is, and he doesn't want that to happen. So in a moment of kind of clarity in this, he's like, he's still very possessive, and this is not a good trait of him for sure. But he decides to kill himself because he's already set it up to Allison, right, as kind of this, backup plan that I'm gonna pin it on her. And Allison's not going to want to have anything to do with her either, right? Yeah. So you're not going to get her. If I can't have her, then boom, I'm going to make it look like you killed me, and now you don't get her either. Nobody gets her. Yeah. Nobody wins here, because if she walks in while I'm killing you, I'm not going to get her, and I'm still going to be alive. But if I kill myself, then you don't get her. I can't have her either way. Yeah. Right? It's I can't have her either way. You're going to look like this hero. No, that's not happening. I'm going to make it look like you did it. I'm done with this. So I didn't understand that the first time as well. Just that his plan was that, like, you can't have her because it's going to make you look like you murdered me. And my plan is... Because I didn't understand the, like, if no one can have her, or if I can't have her, no one could. I thought he was going to be like, he was going to kill Allison. I was very much like, if I can't have her, no one can. Right? That's that line of like, I'm going to kill you because I don't want anyone else to have you. And it's like, no, I'm going to frame you so that she hates you and never wants anything to do with you again. We both lose. Right? So I got that much more on the second time, and I actually fixed my issue. Would I have liked Corey to live, to move on to being the killer? Yes. Do I think his death happens a little too quick? Yes, but because of that, I was actually fine with it. What about you?
Yeah, I mean, I of course wanted to see him in more films continuing the legacy, but that scene makes total sense to me both times that I've seen it now, and it's very vindictive and messed up and selfish of him. Yes, but it makes total sense as to why he would do it.
There's a great line from Allison in here, which of course then just kind of hammers home yet again with Lori's weakness here to this whole, she feels responsible for Myers and all this. So Allison's all she has left, and she's asking her to trust her about Corey, and she's like, the last time I trusted you, my mother was killed, my father was killed, all my friends were killed, everyone I know is dead because I trusted you. Yeah. Right? So this hits hard. Yeah. Speaking of hitting hard, the stepfather at the junkyard is watching Hard Target with Van Damme. Now, the killing of the band squad. This scene is... I don't know if it's easy, I'd say it's top 3 for me of my favorite things in this entire film. Yeah. I love everything about the scene, the music, especially the way everything's shot, the girl being crushed under the fence, and people could be like, oh, she was the nice one, she was trying to help him, as she's still hanging out with these guys. No, screw her. Yes. The fact that she has a conscience and does nothing about it, and when she thinks he's dead, and she doesn't even go to the police, she doesn't tell anybody, and she's still hanging out with these guys after she thinks that he killed him, and she's still trying to do the, like, what's your problem with this guy, and let's leave him alone. What?
Yeah, it's so messed up.
No, I'm glad she's dead.
Yeah, I was like noticing even more this time around, like how on the fence she is with their behavior.
On the fence. No, she was under the fence.
Under the fence. But I don't like her because, as you said, why would she still be hanging out with them if she's a good person?
The scene where the stepfather kind of stands up in like almost defense of Corey, gets shot through the head, and Corey's gone, which of course is very similar to the Lori scene where he pops up behind her and is the shape, just like Michael disappeared when Lori was looking down at him while the sheets were flapping in the wind.
Yes,
he's becoming the shape.
Yes,
and that scene where he stands up, shot, falls down, Corey's gone.
Ugh.
Amazing.
So good.
Amazing.
It's so good.
And the music. Oh, when he starts up the truck.
I know.
And this is an homage to Halloween 4 when Michael Myers was driving the tow truck that he stole from the gas station and drove to Haddonfield. But yeah, I just wanted to point that out.
Yeah, I actually didn't even realize that you're right. It's a tow truck. I kind of was just like, for this whole scene, I was very excited, as you mentioned earlier, about the fact that we see somebody in a Myers costume using mechanic tools to kill, because it's just made me very happy.
Yeah, taking a blowtorch to this guy's face, crushing that girl's head under the... Now, of course, I would have liked to have seen the deaths.
Of course.
A little more graphically. I would have loved to have seen the blowtorch to the face much more graphically. I would have liked to see the head stomp just a little bit more. I would have liked to see... The drumstick through the eye is fine. Like, he kills the drummer with a drumstick and it happens off screen, so when he comes over, you know what's going to happen. He's going to blow up the guy's... He's going to be dead. Whatever. I would have liked to see him brutalize the body more, though, after the fact. And then the girl who gets hit over the head with the pipe wrench, like that, I would have liked to have seen happen, that kind of stuff. So yes, the violence and whatnot is nowhere near as brutal as I would have liked, but the DJ kill where he smashes in his jaw and he makes him look like the hitchhiker from Creepshow 2. Thanks for a lot, lady.
So good.
And then he cuts off his tongue, and then it skips on the record player. And you pointed out, which I didn't even notice until you pointed it out, that Allison is listening to the radio station.
Yeah.
Which is kind of funny to me because she's like, screw this guy, and still is listening to his radio station.
Yeah.
But Willie says, once Willie gets in your ear... Right?
You can't get it out or something.
It's
that. Like the only radio station they listen to but
she hears the skipping of the record and she doesn't realize what she's listening to, but her boyfriend's murdering somebody and she's hearing, the tongue skipping the record. So
good.
That's great.
Really wonderful.
So I love that kill.
Me
I
too.
love when he brings his face up and his jaw's just broken, his tongue's hanging out, and he cuts. That's definitely so mean-spirited, and I love it. And the girl people were pointing out to me is this chick from Joe Bob Briggs or whatever. I have never watched that show, so I didn't recognize her. I had to look her up. People were talking about her. I thought I'd make mention of it really quick because people were talking about it, but I don't know anything about that show, so... I've got nothing to say about that. But there you go. I mentioned it. And I'm sure I missed something here. I don't know. It doesn't matter. We got to move on. We got to get this done. Yes. We've said almost everything. But she... now, Lori knowing that Corey's there and luring him and you really think I'd kill myself and all that. And then she's prepped for Myers as well. The fact that she, is ready for Myers at the same time is a little ridiculous. Why she would have any inkling that Myers was connected to him or is going to also be in the house. But she just, I guess she feels it, right? Lori is almost supernatural in this as well. She can, she's so intuitive to evil at this point. Just it being in her vicinity or looking in someone's eyes, she's privy to it to the point of almost being freaking psychic.
Yeah.
Right.
I didn't think she was particularly prepped for Myers, but she was prepped to fight Corey, and then
Sure, she calls in a suicide.
Maybe she senses Myers as
shoots a pumpkin.
Said.
Lures him in.
That was great. For a moment, I actually was believing that she was gonna kill herself. Like, I don't know. I mean, why would she? That would have been a whoa.
Oh my! That would have been the biggest middle finger to the people who hate this movie.
I know, but I was like,
you're never gonna get the freaking Myers-Laurie thing. She's just killing herself.
Oh my god! But it was just like the way that everything was set up with her so far, where she was so guilt-ridden and like having to deal with this, and yeah, I just was like, oh my god, are they gonna do it? And then.
No.
They didn't.
And then, of course, he gets shot and he falls off a banister, much like in Halloween 78. She comes downstairs, he kills himself. And then when Myers comes around him, he kind of comes back to life, almost like the power, right, is like Michael's kind of taking, but then he takes it all back.
Yes.
He's going to take the power back. A little Rage Against the Machine going on there. And then I really kind of, God, I bring up Star Wars way too much, but I love it, so I can't help myself. But when Laurie grabs the knitting needle and she comes at Myers and she goes to like stab him again and he blocks it, like, I already know this move. You did this move to me, right? Like, this is very reminiscent of an Obi-Wan Kenobi versus Darth Maul in Star Wars Rebels. If you haven't watched Star Wars Rebels, I won't try to spoil it for you, but all I'll say is I've seen that move before. Yeah. You ain't gonna do it to me again. And the same thing happens once again where she like tries to take off his mask and it's like, nah, we already did this. You already tried to take off my mask. You did take off my mask. You ain't taking it off this time. But then she does take his mask off the second time. But it was kind of funny. Grab the knitting needle. She goes for the neck and he like stops it like, nah, I've seen that before. I've seen that movie. You ain't doing it to me again.
Yeah. I love
and then when she pins him down, she's like, you're just a man. Like, he's not.
He's like a man thing.
Yeah. He's a man thing. He's a man thing.
Yeah.
You've been watching Werewolf at Night.
Yes.
Okay, so, yeah, I mean, I definitely thought that Laurie was going to die when she grabbed when he grabbed her throat. His freaking hand split open like in Men.
Oh, man,
and he's like, grabs her and and then she's like, do it. And it's flashing all the scenes from this and that. And it's like, they're going to die together. Okay.
Yeah.
Like, this is what we thought was going to happen. They're both going to die. But then, no. I don't know what that was. I don't know if it was like Jamie Lee Curtis's studio or they really just had that plan where Allison comes in and is like, no, I'm going to save you now. And she does, and he breaks his arm, and then she holds Michael's hand as she slits his wrist. This kind of reminds me of H2O or even Resurrection, where she he's reaching out for her in the mask, oh my god, and she like kind of reaches out for him like, oh, my brother, and then she cuts his head off. And then in Resurrection, of course, before he kills her, she kisses him on the lips like, goodbye. It's this moment between them where they're like together and she's holding his hand as she kills him. But then, some vigilante justice. They get the body.
Goodness, yeah. They get the body and...
She, he's as dead as anybody could ever be.
Yeah, he is.
He's mulched.
Very mulched. And, I love this ending. I think that it fits perfectly with the theme that we've been talking about, which is how the town treats Michael and Laurie. And I think it makes total sense that they would do this vigilante justice style.
The evil dies tonight, people. 100%.
100,000%. But there are people...
And what we saw from the town in this movie where everyone's blaming Michael and this and that. They want to put him to bed once and for all.
Constantly. Or blaming Laurie. And now that she's back in this hero, role, they're behind her again, which again, just, it sucks because it's like, it's stressful and draining no matter what side she's on. But also, the townspeople, where was I going to go with this? Oh, there's some of them that are objecting. Like, some of the police officers are like, what's going on? Like, we don't do it like this. This is how we do it. And then the
Texas
Canadian,
Ranger.
Texas Ranger
whatever he is.
Comes up and is like,
we do tonight.
So...
And then the people who come to town, this actually kind of reminded me of the ending of Avengers Endgame, where you get this kid who shows up for a second, and it takes your brain like a second to recognize, like, oh, that's the kid from Iron Man 3.
Oh yeah,
right. And then this is the kid who's getting babysat in 2018. I saw him for a second, and was like, oh, that's the kid from he's grown up.
Die too in Halloween Kills.
His parents?
Yeah.
Oh, in Kills.
And the doctor in Kills, yeah.
That's his parents?
Those are his parents, and the babysitter is the.
Right, his babysitter is Allison's best friend.
But yeah, I thought his parents is the
is
doctor
the nurse,
and the nurse.
The nurse and the doctor? Those are his parents?
Pretty sure.
Are you sure about that?
Pretty sure.
Oh, damn. I haven't watched it enough to know. I just know that they're coming out of the house on that street. It would make sense because he's on that street.
Uh-huh.
And that's the next house he would go to.
Yeah.
And they're coming out of that house. Yeah. Okay.
Pretty sure. I could be wrong, but I think...
Oh, yeah.
Right.
Tell us. I don't know. I never made that connection. But
yeah,
you could be right. I haven't watched Kills in 18 enough to put that connection together. But it's because they're black. That's why you think it. That's why you think it.
No, not at all.
They're the only black people in town. Them and the Texas Ranger. That's it.
He's their uncle. I'm just kidding. That's not it at all. I promise.
I don't know. Yeah, you might be right. That's right. They put him to bed.
Yep.
And Allison is leaving Haddonfield, as we all are, once and for all. And we get the cherry blossoms. They decide, like, we're gonna be together. She's gonna go to Japan.
He's gonna go to Japan.
And he's gonna lose his shirt or his
shoes.
His shoes. He doesn't know.
Depending.
And we get the wonderful, amazing line to end this from Laurie, which is...
Evil doesn't die, it just changes shape.
Right, which of course talks to the entire franchise. Right? In every way.
Oh, man.
I mean, it's a beautiful closing line. And then we get the sound of silence. Right? And this is wonderful. This is a fantastic ending. I love that line of the changes shape thing. But then we also get the mirroring of Carpenter's Halloween, which ends on Michael still out there. It shows you the living room. It shows you this part of the house. It shows you outside. It shows you the other areas, and you hear Michael breathing. You know he's still out there, right? Like, it leaves you on this very uncomfortable note of, this guy is not dead. It's not over. He's coming for me, whatever. And in this, they show the living room. They show these different rooms like they did at the end of Halloween 78. And here, it's silence. It's, he's gone. It's over, right? You can sleep well now.
Yeah,
the mask is on the table. He's not in it.
Yeah.
Credits, right? It's pure silence, juxtaposed against that breathing that he's still out there.
Yeah.
I love that.
Me too. I think it's phenomenal.
And then you get Blue Oyster Cult coming in, the homage to what Annie and her are listening to on the radio back when Laurie was free.
Yeah.
Back when Laurie was in the summer of love for her. She was with Annie in the car. There was smoking pot. Things were good. This is getting back to Laurie and her happiness.
Yeah.
The don't fear the Reaper. She's not afraid of death anymore. She's not afraid of the Reaper, who is Michael. This takes her back to her childhood before Myers, when things were good, when Annie and Linda and her and everybody, and she still had this crush on Ben Tramer and whatever. This is a perfect song to end it on, not just because it's an homage, because it says something about Laurie.
Absolutely.
It says something about where the franchise is and where it was and where it's been and what it means for Laurie as a character and the full arc of her. So, perfect choice for all of the things. The shape, changing shape, the silence, and the BOC, and her going off, to find love. Love lives today.
Yes.
With Frank.
Oh,
right.
I love it.
Great stuff. And
Wonderful.
Allison has her new beginning. She's out of town. She's gone. She's leaving it all behind. That's that.
It's
We're
wonderful.
done.
Yep.
There is the longest video we've probably ever done.
It's funny because I actually feel like I could talk more about it. Like, I feel
Sure.
like we didn't even really talk about Allison that much in this. We were really focused on, like, Corey and Lori and Michael.
We can only talk
Allison
so much.
is this whole other, like, I love everything that happened with her.
Say something.
Well,
go
no,
ahead. Why
I don't
not?
want to get into it
No,
because it's
go
really
ahead.
just going to continue it. But I think
Just say a few things about Allison and let's wrap it up.
Well, I love that she's kind of walking that line between Lori and Corey as far as how she's reacting to the way that the town is treating her and the events of her past. Like, she is that victim, but there is this anger in her, which you mentioned, whenever she comes home and is like, she says, like, can't I just be angry to Lori? And Lori's like, yeah, it's fine, you can be angry, but it's addictive to smash things. And you had mentioned
Oh,
that
yeah.
it was,
I didn't even mention this line.
Yeah, that it was, you mentioned to me off camera that that's really great because Lori's been there where she was, like, living in anger for so much, and you get really comfortable in that space. But because Lori is moving on from that, she's trying to impart that wisdom onto Allison.
Yeah.
And Allison's still young and figuring things out, So I think that her character in this is very rich, and everything with her and Corey I am so into, and I think that they just complement each other very well. I particularly love the scene when they have their fight at the end of the Halloween dance, and she's like reaching her hands out for him, trying to get him to connect with her, and he pulls away and she's just like left there, and it's like so emotional and so heartbreaking. And I also really like that when they are at the dance and he's, Corey's letting go and he like falls on the floor and she's like over him and like, moving her hands and he's looking up at her face and they're both really happy. That shot is also mirrored when she walks in on him dead or dying and she's looking down at him, and there's the same kind of back and forth between their two faces. And I like that kind of poetry in film. So yeah, I just really loved her character, and I'm glad that we got to see a more complex version of her, I guess.
Yeah.
But yeah, I think this is a fantastic slasher film. I think that it is one of the richer story-based slashers, and as I had mentioned earlier, I think that we really get to see more of, like, we just get a more interesting version of Michael. Even though he's not in the film that much, through Corey, we get this backstory, and I just really love it. So, yeah.
And yeah, I mean, that line of like the addictiveness of anger and whatever, of course, is foreshadowing for what happens to Corey. He becomes addicted to revenge.
Yeah.
And as far as Allison goes, I had mentioned in our spoiler-free review that she mirrors Scout Taylor Compton's Laurie Strode in Rob Zombie's Halloween 2. She's broken from all the events of what's happened to her, and she's letting loose, and she's making bad decisions, and she's getting around the wrong people, and her friend even reminds me of like Harley or her other friend. I can't remember her name at the moment. Brie Grant's character. But she reminds me of that. So, yeah.
Yeah.
I think that's it. We got to cut it off. This is literally, like I just checked, and this is as long as the film.
Oh, no. Well,
As expected.
This is our
It's okay.
spoiler
And this is the last time we're talking about Halloween for a while, but they'll
Yeah.
make another one eventually. Not off this story, off this timeline, but another timeline.
Yeah.
A 17th timeline.
17th. Why
So
not?
bring it on.
I'm
We'll
ready
do
for
it.
it.
5-10 years from now, we'll get another Halloween movie. That'll probably get 6 or 7 other films attached to it. I'm fine with that. Let's do it.
We are also going to be talking about it again because we want to do a book-movie comparison because we have the novelizations.
We have the Halloween Ends novel coming on Tuesday.
Yeah.
And we'll read all of them and compare them eventually.
Yeah.
But with all the time that we have, we'll see when that happens.
Yeah, that's going to be a ways away probably.
The Terrifier 2 review, spoiler discussion, is coming very, very soon.
Yes.
We promise.
Yes.
We just went on vacation.
Yeah.
And for the two of you that are still here, congratulations.
Yes, you made it.
You love this movie as much as us, or you're just sitting there still typing out your diatribe.
Response.
Your fucking,
You so dumb. response?
Yes.
Yeah.
Yes. So, we look forward to all the comments.
Yeah.
All 6,000 of them. And we'll see you in the comments.
In the comments?
Other than that, guys, Halloween ends. And so does this video.